Lufa's Mafel, the black-winged overlord and leader of the 12 stars of heaven, has been defeated. Years later, a man wakes up in her body, 200 years after her downfall at the hands of the 7 heroes. But the game world he once knew as Xgate is no longer ruled by humans, and it's no longer just a game. It has become a living world where every character thinks, feels, and breathes just like him. Our story begins with a young Lufus swearing to grow stronger and eliminate injustice. As she matures, that determination transforms her into a conqueror. Eventually, a group of heroes gathers to take her down. The battlefield is fierce, with corpses scattered everywhere. They believe they have her cornered, but she strikes first, taking down one of them in an instant. An archer tries to snipe her, but she easily blocks the shot. At that moment, a bear-like hero charges, only for Lufus to block and send him flying, knocking out the archer too. Another hero, a tanker, attacks head-on, but Lufus pins him down. It turns out to be a trap. Another hero attacks with magic from behind. Lufus counters, but it's revealed as an illusion by the hero mage. Despite their efforts, the hero is pierced through his chest. Refusing to die quietly, he unleashes his climax skill. Lufus tries to evade, but he grabs her hand and strikes with the skill. The mage then casts a subspace seal. The heroes gather to witness Lufus's final moments. She commends their victory, expressing belief that they can now defeat the Demon King. ORM, before being sealed, resulting in her defeat. But the truth is, Lufus was originally a game character created by a shut-in loser. One day, he receives a strange notification from the game's goddess of creation, Alovenus. Thinking it's an official message because his character became a boss rivaling the Demon King, he accepts it. His screen goes black, and when he opens his eyes, he finds himself surrounded by strangers. Assuming it's a prank, he looks down, noticing breasts and confirming his male anatomy is gone. Checking his reflection, he sees Lufus's exact likeness, complete with black wings. Convinced he's dreaming like the loser he is, he decides to ask the people in front of him for clarity. But when he opens his mouth, a powerful pressure slams them to the ground. Despite only wanting to ask a question, Lufus's overlord-like speech overwhelms them. She mocks their pinned-down state as their standard posture. He tries to calm the pressure, but speaking again only intensifies it. After much begging and effort, he stops the skill point. One of the people, an elf, seems to recognize her. Lufus demands he explain the state of affairs, but he passes out from fear. When he wakes, he reveals it's been 200 years since her sealing, and the Demon King is still alive. They used Xgate to summon a hero, accidentally breaking her seal. Overjoyed at being reincarnated in his beloved game, Lufus tries to ease their fears, but they're too terrified. She reassures them she's not here to cause trouble, declaring she's no longer an overlord but a young girl eager to explore the world after 200 years. She tells them they can summon another hero if they wish, then flies off, thrilled to see what Xgate has become. From high above, the view is breathtaking. But one thing stands out, a colossal tower piercing through the clouds. She instantly knows where her first destination lies. Xgate is an online fantasy game set in Midgars, famous for its war system where players engage in PvP and winners conquer nations. Its novel system publishes character stories as official history. Lufus was the strongest character, conquering all of Midgars for the first time in game history, making her a semi-official character. Bored as the sole ruler, he negotiated with other players for a war between Lufus's forces and the heroes, resulting in the game's greatest battle. Ultimately, Lufus was defeated and sealed in a subspace. Now, she heads toward the Sky Tower of Mafel, her old base. Inside, the halls are empty, the throne room covered in dust. Sitting on her throne, memories of her former companions resurface. Then, out of nowhere, a flashback hits her. Two of the heroes who once fought her appear in her mind, before she can make sense of it. A young girl approaches, overjoyed, rushing to Lufus's side, claiming she's waited 200 years. Lufus doesn't recognize her. The girl, Dina, introduces herself as Lufus's loyal advisor. Lufus remembers appointing a young girl as a backdrop NPC advisor when building the tower. Confused that an NPC gained self-awareness and waited for her, Lufus apologizes for forgetting someone so loyal. She confides in Dina about her broken seal. Dina reveals the kingdom of Levitian broke it, rumored to be preparing to summon a hero. Lufus orders Dina to brief her on events since her sealing. Dina explains the 7 heroes who defeated her founded their own nations, but 4 have died of old age. Lufus wonders if the remaining heroes are players like her. Dina drops a bombshell. The 12 heavenly stars are alive. These unique, powerful monster NPCs were bestowed the title for their strength. But Dina adds that 2 of the 12 joined the demon lord to avenge Lufus. Lufus is disappointed in her subordinates for joining the demon lord, even if it was to avenge her. Lufus declares they'll journey to gather the 12 heavenly stars and investigate if the remaining heroes are players. Dina informs her that the first star they can find is Ares the Ram, who is currently at war with one of the 7 heroes, Migres and Svel. Lufus spreads her wings, ready to depart, but Dina stops her. They need preparation and, more importantly, money. After waiting 200 years, they don't have a single penny. Lufus suggests raising funds. Dina notes her appearance, especially her black wings. A curse among the heaven-winged is too recognizable. Lufus scoffs, doubting anyone would remember her after 200 years. But Dina calls her naive, pointing out Elve's long age and her face is still fresh memories. Dina suggests adventuring, as it ignores identity or background. Lufus agrees, liking the idea. They head to the bustling trade city of Idalir, with Lufus hiding her wings under a cloak. The disguise ironically draws even more attention. Inside the Adventurers Guild, nostalgia hits her. It feels like the old days. Dina recalls Lufus's past as an adventurer, and Lufus laughs it off, muttering about the good old days. They head to the quest board. Dina picks a quest to find lost cats for 200 EL, but Lufus insists fighting is their forte, not searching. Dina then selects an orc extermination quest for 1500 EL. Lufus recalls that in the game, killing orcs yields a 3% chance of dropping orc meat, which boosts max HP. They reach the village plagued by orcs. The village chief explains the situation, and Dina reassures him Lufus will handle it. At the orc den, Dina mocks their ugly faces, joking even the goddess sees them as failures and urges Lufus to wipe them out. Before attacking, Lufus checks her stats, all maxed, consistent with the game. Using alchemy, she crafts swords from the earth and takes out the guarding orcs. She feels grossed out by their corpses, but remains mentally unshaken. The commotion draws more orcs, led by their massive chief. The orcs attack, but their movements are sluggish to Lufus. Realizing she doesn't need swords, she pops their heads off with ease. The orc chief, terrified by his fallen minions, attacks the ground randomly. Despite his efforts, Lufus stands unscathed. A fire ignites on the orc's blood, and Lufus notes the vast gap in strength and perception of time. The chief tries again, but Lufus appears in his face, pats his head, and the orc felt like an ominous force was crushing him, causing his head to explode. For Lufus, it wasn't even a battle. It was nothing more than a slaughter. After slaughtering all the orcs, Dina calls upon Lufus and informs her that they got lucky this time. They found undamaged tenderloin. According to Dina, if eaten, it enhances vitality, the same as boosting HP in the old game. She explains that they were fortunate to find undamaged ones, since orcs are constantly fighting among themselves. That makes the chance of obtaining intact tenderloin only about 3%. Hearing this, Lufus improvises, saying that next time they should be more careful not to damage any. Dina smiles, promising that she'll cook it for her later, then teleports all the dead orcs to the tower for processing. Watching her work, Lufus quietly mutters that Dina is far more useful than she initially expected. Once the battlefield is cleared, Dina suggests that they free the kidnapped women being held nearby. They move quickly, and the rescue goes smoothly. Dina breathes a sigh of relief when she confirms that none of the women were harmed in any way. Lufus then casually explains that orcs are, in their own strange way, gentlemen. They take good care of the women they capture, hoping to win their affection rather than harm them. That revelation completely shocks Dina, who finds it hard to believe, since their faces don't exactly match their supposed personalities. But even so, the women remain terrified of them. And Lufus concludes that humans and orcs simply cannot coexist, that To makes sure they won't return. She uses alchemy once again and recreates Hrungnir's right arm, smashing the entire orc lair into dust. The ground trembles, and nothing remains but rubble. After that, Dina proposes erasing the women's memories so they won't have to live with the trauma. Surprised by Dina's skill, Lufas asks if such a thing is really necessary. Dina replies that it would be best. They shouldn't remember being kidnapped by pigs. Lufas has no objections and asks her how much control she has over memory manipulation. Dina answers calmly that if she feels like it, she can even implant false memories or entire personalities. Hearing that, Lufas nods approvingly, and the two prepare to head back to the village. That on their way, Lufas creates a golem to carry them, sculpting it effortlessly with alchemy. As they travel, she asks why no one had taken out the orcs before, since the quest seemed so simple. Dina answers that compared to 200 years ago, the general standard of combat has declined drastically. Lufas raises an eyebrow and asks what she means by that. Dina gives an example: the kingdom that summoned Lufas, which is considered one of the strongest nations today. Then she asks Lufas to guess what the strongest person's level is nowadays. Lufas answers casually, thinking it should still be around level 1000 like in her era. But Dina's answer shocks her. It's only 120. Lufas mutters to herself, realizing that in her time, there were many players who reached level 1000 just like her. Dina explains that Lufas's era was an anomaly, filled with endless battles and powerful monsters. But now, there are no monsters that can reach level 1000 before dying. And since people only have one life in this world, they've grown cautious. They don't want to risk it all just to level up. That's when Lufas finally understands the truth. This isn't a game anymore. It's reality. Back at the village, the rescued women reunite joyfully with their families. Lufas and Dina receive their reward from the grateful villagers. The village chief approaches Lufas, asking if it's truly all right to leave the golem with them. Lufas assures him that the golem will protect them if orcs ever appear again. As they prepare to leave, one of the women asks for Lufas's name. Before she can answer, Dina quickly steps in and introduces her using an alias, Svalu. Lufas, clearly annoyed, stamps on Dina's foot with her heel in silent protest. The women thank them sincerely, unaware of the small quarrel. And Lufas and Dina continue their journey. Now that they've earned enough money, they decide to begin their main quest, to find the 12 heavenly stars. Their first destination is the nation of Svel. Lufas sets her mission clearly, to stop Ares the Ram, who's been attacking Svel, and as a side objective, to verify whether other players might still exist in this world. The ones most likely to be players, she suspects, are the 7 heroes, and one of them happens to reside in Svel. As they pass through the forest, the surroundings suddenly beam with light. Dina explains that it's mana. The land around them is overflowing with it because they're getting close to Svel. Finally, they arrive at the gates of the city, founded by the wise king Migres himself. At the entrance, guards request their identification. Lufas freezes for a moment, realizing she has no ID. Before she can panic, Dina calmly takes care of it by providing one, an ID for a free trader unaffiliated with any nation. Once inside, Dina begins explaining everything about Svel. It's known as the City of Magic, founded by one of the 7 heroes, the elf Migres, who is revered as the wise king. Anyone aspiring to become a mage or scholar gathers here to study. As they walk through the city, Dina suddenly remembers that members of the heavenly winged tribe dislike mana-rich environments. But Lufas reassures her, saying that she actually finds mana pleasant. Curious, Dina then asks what their next move should be. Lufas bluntly replies that they should meet Migres directly. Dina instantly panics, fearing Lufas' plans to storm the castle. But Lufas clarifies that Ares is already causing enough chaos. They don't need to add more. Relieved, Dina suggests a quieter approach. Instead, Lufas decides they should visit the library to learn what happened in the 200 years she was sealed. Since they're unfamiliar with the area, they stop to ask for directions. A mercenary named Gantz offers to take them there. Dina introduces herself as a free trader and mischievously introduces Lufas as a suspicious person named Svalu, earning another painful heel stamp. Gantz laughs off the odd introduction, thinking Lufas must have her reasons for such an eccentric getup. As they travel, Gantz explains more about Svel. He says the city used to have a larger population, But many people moved away ever since one of the 12 heavenly stars began attacking the region. Still, he reassures them that they're safe because the lake surrounding Svel is actually a giant water golem that acts as the city's guardian deity. Curious, Lufus checks its status and is amazed by its level and HP. It's incredibly strong. For the current era, finally, Gantz leads them to a monorail station that connects to the Eastern District, where the library is located. Before leaving, he bids them farewell. As he walks away, Lufus glances at his status and sees that his level is 82. For this era, that's actually quite high, which earns her respect at the library. Lufus and Dina begin searching for records about the last 200 years. But instead of general history, Lufus finds books specifically about herself. Confused, she asks Dina why there are works describing her death as a mistake and others that criticize the seven heroes' foolishness. Dina explains that Lufus was never truly despised as she believed. In fact, during her rule, she overthrew tyrants and protected the people of those nations. However, humanity turned against her under the leadership of the seven heroes, ending her reign as a result. Once Lufus was gone, the demon folk, who had feared her power, began attacking humans. Without her, no one could keep them in check. The heroes tried to resist the demons, but ultimately failed, and human territory continued to shrink year after year. Lufus is shocked to learn that humanity's habitat has diminished so drastically, and that the world has fallen into such disarray because of her absence. Having found the truth she needed, Lufus leaves the library and commands Dina to take her to Ares' castle. But before they can go, the ground shakes violently. An earthquake nearly topples the city. In the aftermath, Gantz rushes through the streets helping injured civilians. Moments later, an announcement echoes through Svel, summoning all mercenaries to the border with their gear. Meanwhile, Lufus asks Dina how often earthquakes occur here. Dina replies that they're quite rare. That's when Lufus reveals something unsettling. Ares has an ability that can cause earthquakes, implying that he must be approaching the city. Dina confirms it, sensing a powerful mana fluctuation from afar. Even Migres, from his castle, feels the disturbance. Dina suggests that they take the monorail to reach the border quickly, but Lufus has a better idea. She uses alchemy once again and creates a massive bird-like statue to serve as transportation. As they soar through the air, Lufus grows uneasy. Something about Ares feels off. Ares, one of the 12 heavenly stars, is a rainbow sheep who usually hates conflict. Even if he were seeking revenge for Lufus, he wouldn't act like this. Suddenly, an unfamiliar memory flashes through Lufus's mind. She can't make sense of it. Looking ahead, she sees what's waiting, a massive horde of monsters marching towards Svel. And among them, roaring in pure rage, stands Ares, the ram, one of the 12 heavenly stars. We see a flashback of the heavenly star Ares, back when he was just a lamb, crying alone in a dark forest. That's when Lufus found him. She was surprised to see such a legendary creature, a monster said to be born only once every 500 years. Seeing him crying, she figured he was on the run, trying to escape from monsters and humans alike. After all, a single thread of his wool was said to be more valuable than gold. Lufus advised him that instead of spending the rest of his life weeping, he should try striking back at his foes. Hearing that, the little lamb gathered his courage and jumped to attack her. Lufus, impressed by his spirit, put him down with ease and asked him to come with her, to grow stronger and join her in her quest to crush everything in her jaws and conquer the entire world. Amazed by her ambition, the lamb agreed to follow her. When she asked his name, he shook his head, having none. So, Lufus looked up at the stars and gave him one, Ares, muttering softly to herself. She never imagined that a rainbow sheep would become her very first companion. Back in the present, Gantz rushes to the border with his companion Johnny, ready to face Ares the ram in the final battle. Outside the castle walls, the army stands in formation, preparing for war. But both the captain and Gantz are stunned by the sheer size of the approaching monster horde. They doubt whether they can hold out until reinforcements arrive. To their surprise, Ares issues a declaration of war before attacking. Mimicking the code of honor once imposed by his master during her reign, with no time to spare, the captain orders the mages to unleash their spells and wipe out as many monsters as possible. But even after the barrage of magic, the horde keeps advancing. Archers fire their arrows next, yet it's still not enough. The monsters just won't stop. With no other choice, the army charges forward. Gantz leads the knights into the front lines, cutting down monsters one after another. He spots Johnny struggling with an ogre and rushes to his aid, but the enemies keep pouring in. In moments, the tide begins to turn against them. The soldiers start getting pushed back, and even Gantz is reaching his limit. Reinforcements are nowhere in sight. When all hope seems lost, Migres appears, commanding Livia to strike. Livia descends in a flash of light and wipes out the nearby monsters in one massive sweep. The soldiers erupt in cheers as their guardian deity, Livia, joins the fray. Migres steps onto the battlefield, commending the soldiers for holding out this long. Now that he's here, he declares, he and Livia will take over and protect the country. At his command, Livia charges again, finishing off the remaining monsters with overwhelming force. High above, Lufas and Dina observe the battle from the sky. Lufas is relieved to see that Gantz is safe. She notes that with Livia's presence, they might actually have a chance to defeat Ares, since Livia's water element naturally counters Ares' fire. Not only that, Migres himself is also there. Lufas tries to check Migres' status, but since they're the same level, she doesn't expect to see it. To her surprise, his status appears, and his level is only 500. The reason? Mark of the Vanquished. Curious, she asks Dina what it means. Dina explains that the rumors were true. The 7 heroes were cursed when they were defeated by the Demon King, leaving them unable to access more than half of their original power. Before Lufas can say more, Ares appears on the battlefield. The final confrontation between Svel and Ares is about to begin. Ares and Livia charge straight toward each other, head to head. Migres mutters that between water and fire, they have the advantage. Livia forms a giant water drill and attacks, but Ares evades and fires a blazing breath of fire straight at Migres. Livia quickly shields him, swallowing the flames in a surge of steam. Using Livia as a conduit, Migres unleashes a massive tidal wave, but Ares leaps over it, despite his enormous size, and slams into Migres with crushing force. Migres raises a magical barrier just in time, blocking the hit. But Ares activates Mesartheme, a memento from Lufas, and the shield begins to crack. When victory seems close for Ares, Livia coils around him, absorbing his flames and evaporating the heat. The soldiers cheer, thinking the battle is over. But Lufas, watching from above, shakes her head. In terms of raw power, she admits, Livia will win this battle. But her health is being drained. The longer this fight drags on, the more danger she'll be in. Lufas realizes that Ares never planned to win. His goal from the start was to weaken Livia. Soon, he'll retreat, since he knows neither she nor Migres can pursue him without leaving the kingdom vulnerable. Lufas sighs, acknowledging how cunning Ares has become. Dina smirks and says he learned from the best. Lufas can't deny it. She used plenty of cunning tactics herself back in the day. As expected, Ares activates Mesartheme once again and escapes Livia's grasp. Seeing this, Lufas decides it's too dangerous to let Livia weaken further. She grabs Dina and leaps from the bird statue, descending toward the battlefield. Meanwhile, Ares prepares to deliver his final strike. Lufas feels bad about what she's about to do, but she never asked her old companion to avenge her. She kicks Ares, sending him flying across the mountains, telling him to cool his head off. After the blow, Lufas approaches Migres, who immediately asks who she is. Lufas replies that she'll explain later when there are fewer eyes around. Her tone and voice make Migres freeze. He recognizes her, but he can't bring himself to believe it. Lufas tells him she'll take care of Ares and orders Dina to follow later by teleportation. Before she leaves, Migres warns her that someone else is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Lufas accepts the warning, trusting it from an old friend, and heads off to face Ares once more. When she arrives, Ares asks for her identity. Lufas is shocked. He can talk now. Instead of answering, she lets out her pressure, the overwhelming aura reminding him exactly who she is. Ares immediately recognizes her, but he hesitates, thinking she must be an imposter. Lufas releases her pressure and calmly reassures him that she is Lufas Maffel herself. But if he doubts her, she invites him to test it. With his strength, Ares activates Mesartheme, ready for battle. Luphus smiles, thrilled to finally have a real fight again after so long. Ares charges, ramming into her with all his might, pushing her far back. But Luphus cancels his skill and stops him in his tracks. He tries again, but she doesn't even budge. Then, with casual strength, she lifts him up and tosses him skyward. Before he can hit the ground, she punches his chin, sending him flying higher. From the battlefield below, soldiers can see his body soaring across the sky. She follows up, slamming him down and pinning him to the ground. Even after that, Ares gets back up, determined to fight to the end. He unleashes his strongest fire attack as a final effort. Luphus commends him for facing her with his full strength and decides to answer him in kind. Both of them charge head-on, their clash creating a massive explosion that shakes the entire battlefield. When the dust settles, Ares lies defeated. Luphus praises him for how much he's grown, from the little crybaby she once knew into a true warrior. With a playful flick, she sends him flying again and asks if he still doubts her. Ares stands up, tears in his eyes, and leaps toward her. But this time, he transforms into his human form, crying and apologizing as he hugs her tightly. Luphus chuckles, calling him the same crybaby even after 200 years. That moment, Dina arrives through teleportation. Luphus checks Ares' status. It's the same as before, still bound by the rule that companion monsters can't surpass their master's level. Smiling, she tells Ares that he's the first of the heavenly stars she'll reclaim. She commands him to join her again, with no objections. Ares accepts joyfully, honored to be her first once more. Just like that, Ares rejoins the party. Dina cheers for their new companion, but Ares tilts his head and asks who she is. Dina snaps, trying to jog his memory by reminding him she'd been with Luphus all along in Maffel Tower. Ares remembers vaguely, but it's still a blur. Then, with his usual bluntness, he calls her a background character. Dina turns to Luphus to complain, sulking in the corner while crying dramatically. Luphus sighs and tells Ares to stop bullying her. She's been supporting them since her return. Ares shrugs, saying he only spoke the truth, which makes Dina even angrier. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in a dark place, a shadowy figure smirks quietly. And fun fact, why Ares looks like a girl but is addressed as a boy? Because, well, Ares is a femboy. Luphus asks Ares why he invaded Svel. Filled with anger, Ares replies that he cannot forgive the humans who betrayed her. After she strove to grant them a life free from devil folk, humanity squandered her efforts, trampled on her ideals, and hailed the betrayers as heroes, living carefree. Moreover, Ares owes her his life, as she once saved him when he was merely a lamb. Luphus understands that his motive stems from devotion to her. She thanks him for his loyalty, but tells him that she seeks no vengeance. Yet she recalls Migres's warning, someone may be pulling strings behind the scenes. She asks Ares who manipulated his feelings and deceived him. Meanwhile, in the Guile volcano, one of the devil folk luminaries, Mars the Fire, gathers an elite army of level 80 and above. Believing Ares has weakened Levia, he orders them to march on Svel and kill every human they find, muttering that it was worth provoking Ares' thirst for vengeance. He preaches to the demon lord that a single opposing hero will fall, thanks to Ares. He celebrates. Something crashes down from the sky, cratering the ground and knocking out his elite monsters. When Mars checks the impact site, he sees Ares standing beside a cloaked Luphus, whom he does not recognize. Suspecting she might be a hero, Mars notes her overwhelming strength and descends to investigate. Observing his blue skin and black eyes, Luphus immediately realizes that the devil folk are the ones who manipulated Ares. Mars taunts Ares, urging him to fulfill his revenge and topple Svel for his master's sake. But Ares steps forward and admits that while he would love to take revenge for Luphus, it would only benefit the devil folk, not her. Changed and resolute, he declares that he will stop Mars instead. Grinning, Mars says he anticipated this. Though Ares once served as their trump card against Levia, drawing his dagger, Mars declares that Ares, having served his purpose, will not live after betraying the devil folk. Luphus intervenes, commanding Ares to leave it to her, since he is still injured from their earlier battle. Mars activates his secret art, Devil of Ice and Fire. Ice prison hellfire instantaneous. Phantasmal devil sword. Wielding freezing ice in his left hand and hellfire in his right, he moves at light speed, boasting that no one has ever survived his art. But as he continues to talk excessively while moving, Luffy grows tired of his arrogance and sends him flying with a single punch. As Mars hurtles through the air, he glimpses her black wings and blonde hair. Luffy was shocked to realize this weakling is none other than the mastermind Migres mentioned. Turning to Ares, Luffy asks his title, but before he can answer, Dina appears through teleportation. She explains that Mars is one of the 7 luminaries, the strongest after the Devil King and his son. Confused that such strongest beings are only level 300. Luffy listens as Dina notes that devilfolk's standards have declined just like humanity's. Ares then asks why she spared the monsters. Luffy replies that they were manipulated, and she has plans for them. Using her capture skill, she makes them her minions and orders them to return to their habitats and avoid unprovoked attacks. Receiving her command, the monsters disperse peacefully. Thus, the Ares Svel incident comes to an end. Returning to the kingdom, Luffy and her companions inform Migres that they have recovered Ares, defeated Luminary Mars, and commanded the monsters to retreat. Surprised that she resolved in a single day what had taken them years, Migres invites her to a private discussion. Luffy recalls Migres as a fellow player who once hunted alongside her, though she is now uncertain if he truly is one. Meanwhile, snake-like nobles storm Migres's quarters, feigning concern yet caring only for themselves. Dina and Luffy quietly note their hypocrisy. Their worry extends not to Migres, but only to their own security. Later, Migres ashamedly explains that nobles who were meant to defend the people now only protect themselves, deliberately showing her proof of his failure. Inside his chamber, he asks Luffy to reveal her face. She does, but his reaction is unexpected, pure fear, despite seeing his supposed old friend. Realizing that he is not a player, Luffy listens as Migres asks why she returned after 200 years. Was it to mock their downfall? Calmly, Luffy explains that a hero's summoning brought her back. Yet she is confused that he remains so composed despite facing his ancient enemy. She recalls a book in the library criticizing the 7 heroes, collected by Migres himself. For years, he has carried guilt over the devilfolk invasion that followed their victory over her. Blaming himself, Luffy sighs and tells him not to shoulder that guilt. He should be proud of defeating a powerful foe. Migres then asks if she harbors resentment for their betrayal when her dream was so close to realization. Feeling none. After all, it was once a game. Luffy instead channels what the real Luffy would say. Perhaps she lacked as a leader, and that failing sparked the uprising. She advises him to abandon self-blame and to stand tall. Proud as he was 2 centuries ago, Migres reminisces about drinking with Luffy and Alioth, when they once vowed to build a proud elven nation in a great city. Luffy had boldly declared world conquest, and Alioth laughed, promising to eat pasta through his nose if she succeeded, joking that they would never face each other in battle. Seeing the same spark in her eyes now, Migres thanks her. Luffy restores Levia's maximum HP, something Migres, weakened by time, can no longer do. Ares refuses to apologize for his earlier actions, even knowing his fault. Luffy decides it is time to depart in search of the 12 heavenly stars. Migres asks her next destination. Dina suggests the Black-Winged King's grave. Luffy is confused. It seems to refer to her own. Dina explains that her admirers built the world's largest structure 200 years ago, atop which Libra of the Scales stands guard over her entombed treasures and equipment. Migres adds that rumors describe Libra as a killing machine who eliminates anyone who approaches the top floor. Luffy wonders why anyone would risk fighting Libra merely for treasure. Migres explains that most legendary weapons were lost during the war with the Demon Lord. Those treasures are humanity's last hope against the devil folk, but Libra prevents access. Shamelessly, he requests that she lend him any unused items once she recovers them. Luffy agrees, confident in her own strength without them. Thanking her, Migres offers items to conceal her wings and a disguise to help her move freely among humans. At the kingdom's entrance, she finds Gantz waiting to bid farewell. He fails to recognize her at first. When she reveals she is Sval, Gantz is stunned by her beauty. She thanks him for his help, and they part ways. Gantz suspects she might be Lufa's but quickly dismisses the thought as impossible. Meanwhile, the heavily wounded Mars trembles at the thought of Lufa's return. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears before him, stating that his role is finished. With a snap of her fingers, Mars vanishes, erased completely, as if he never existed. The group sets their sights on their next objective, Libra of the Scales, who's said to be located at the grave of the Black-Winged King, a destination that's a whopping 500 kilometers away. That's a huge distance, and while Lufus is totally fine with walking, Dina immediately protests, saying not everyone's a superhuman like her, and walking that far is exhausting. She comes up with a proposal to create a golem that can carry them around. Lufus points out that they already have her teleportation magic, but then remembers they'd even use a carriage to get to Svel. Dina explains that teleportation magic is really meant for personal use, and to teleport another living creature, you either need their full consent or you have to knock them unconscious. The problem is, even a tiny bit of refusal in someone's heart can cause the spell to fail, which is pretty terrifying. So, it's just a huge hassle. Getting even more ambitious, Dina suggests that while they're at it, the golem should come with a bath and a place to sleep so they don't have to camp outside anymore. Lufus is a bit skeptical about what kind of golem that would even be, but she agrees to give it a try. With a loud cry of alchemize, the golem is created, and inside, they find incredibly soft and fluffy beds. Ares dramatically declares that he's unfit to be a bride now, and Lufus just bluntly reminds him that he's a man. With that settled, they decide the golem needs a name. Dina thinks it should sound chic, but not too pretentious, while another companion suggests something simple and easy to remember. Lufus declares that its name will be Tanaka. What follows next is a ridiculous commercial-style presentation, promoting Tanaka as the golem that can take you to beaches, cities, and mountains. It even comes with a status card showing it's an artificial life form. Lufus then commands, "Tanaka, drive us to the grave of the Black-Winged King," and the golem responds in a calm, robotic tone, "Yes, boss." The group finds traveling in Tanaka to be an absolute breeze. It's super comfortable, and before long, they decide to stop for the night, having Tanaka park in a good spot that as soon as they step out. Dina sniffs the air and suddenly gets all excited. She's found a hot spring. Lufus points out that they already made a bath inside Tanaka, but Dina insists that a natural hot spring is completely different and practically drags her along. She tells Ares he can go later since he's as they prepare to get in. Dina stops Lufus and scolds her for planning to enter the water without tying up her long hair. She explains that it's bad manners because stray hair floating on the surface makes the water dirty for the next person. Lufus admits she's got a point, and Dina offers to tie it up for her. Lufus, trying to avoid seeing Dina's naked body despite being female herself, tells her to stay put. She'll come to her instead. Dina comments on how pretty Lufus's hair is and notes that such long hair must give her stiff shoulders. After tying it up, she encourages Lufus to relax and enjoy the hot spring since it's been ages since she could properly stretch her wings. The water feels amazing. But Dina notices her legs are a bit swollen from sitting in Tanaka all day, though Lufus feels perfectly fine. Dina then spots some rare creatures nearby, adaptive frogs, and points them out. She explains that the pink one's female and the green ones are male. But what's really fascinating is that when there are too many males, some of them actually change their sex to female so they can mate with the extras. She marvels at how they used to be male, but their feelings change, and they fall in love with other males. Lufus seems to have some kind of reaction to this revelation. And just then, Lufus decides that's her cue to get out of the water and lets Ares know it's his turn next. Eventually, the group arrives at the grave of the Black-Winged King, which turns out to be so massive that an entire village has sprung up around it. Dina explains that hunters and adventurers came to conquer the grave, merchants followed, and the place simply grew into a tourist spot. Ares is absolutely livid, declaring that it's outrageous for fools to ransack Lufus's grave, and he prepares to attack them. But Lufus immediately stops her hot-headed ram, telling him there's no need to cause a commotion. She reminds him that since she's standing right there, it's obviously not her real grave, so she doesn't care if people are raiding some fake monument. Internally, she notes how crazy he gets when it comes to her and wonders if all of the 12 heavenly stars are this obsessive. Their attention is drawn to a nearby crowd, so they ask what's going on. A man explains that a special reconnaissance team of 50 powerful adventurers went into the grave 2 months ago and were on the verge of conquering the top floor, but they missed their daily check-in. Realizing that Libra must be on the highest floor, Lufus decides they need to retrieve her fast to prevent any more casualties that as they head in. The man tries to warn them that if the special team struggled, then 3 of them don't stand a chance. But Lufus simply tells him they appreciate his concern, though it's unfounded, because there will be no more deaths on their watch. Inside the grave, they're suddenly met by golems, which Dina immediately recognizes as mass-produced models Lufus created for the final battle against the 7 heroes. Lufus notes that they have no intent to attack her or Ares since they're designed to distinguish friend from foe and still recognize her as their master, even after 200 years. But then, for some reason, the golems suddenly turn and attack only Dina. Ares jokes that her presence must be so faint that even the golems forgot she exists. Just as Lufus prepares to step in, another group of adventurers calling themselves Hawkeye jumps in to protect Dina. Lufus watches their movements and notes that their coordination isn't bad, but their strength is way too low, and they'll be wiped out before they can defeat the golem. She orders Ares to assist them, and with a single move, Ares obliterates the golem, leaving the adventurers in total awe. One of them rushes up to Ares, calling him young lady and asking how he pulled that off. Lufus steps in and tells them to calm down, also clarifying that Ares is a man. Much to their shock, the party then introduces themselves: Jean the warrior, Richard the heavy warrior, Nick the light warrior, and Shu the archer. Lufus's group introduces themselves under a cover story as free traders and rangers. Both sides immediately notice how unbalanced the other's party is. Hawkeye being all frontliners and Lufus's group pretending to be all rangers. Jean calls them muscle heads for relying on high levels, which annoys Lufus so much she threatens to alchemize a giant boomerang and stick it in his head. Thinking Lufus's party lacks frontliners, Hawkeye offers to act as their bodyguards. To Dina's complete surprise, Lufus immediately agrees. Later, she privately tells Dina that they should use Hawkeye while they can, revealing a rather cunning streak. She plans to support them just enough to keep things believable that as they proceed deeper. The scene cuts to the top floor, where the last remnants of another adventurer team face Libra of the Scales herself. They're determined to bring back the weapons cache for the future of humanity. Libra detects their presence and warns them to leave within 10 seconds, or be eliminated. The adventurers desperately plead that they're not there to fight, but to retrieve the legacy of the Black-Winged King to save the world from the devil folk. Unfortunately, Libra's programming simply identifies them as intruders trying to steal her master's treasures, ignoring their pleas. Her countdown ends, and she declares that their actions comply with the conditions for elimination. Without hesitation, she activates her ultimate weapon, Brachium. Meanwhile, as for Hawkeye, Luff started to regret bringing them along since these guys were absolute fodder and not even smart enough to realize how weak they were. Every time they ran into a golem, they got their asses handed to them, and Luff always had to order the golems to stand down before the adventurers ended up dead. But the worst part was that they genuinely believed they were the ones who beat them. Luff worried she was giving them false confidence, but there was no point arguing. Eventually, they reached the final Guardian Golem, and this one was way stronger than the rest. Coming in at level 600, Lufus instantly knew the adventurers would get folded the moment they got close. So she told them to stand back while she handled it. The adventurers tried warning her it was too dangerous to fight alone, but Daimima assured them that Luff had a plan, watching as she calmly walked toward the golem. The first thing she did was ask if it recognized her. The golem's reaction made it clear that it did, but even then, it attacked. Forced to defend herself, Luff cut it clean in half with a single strike. As she turned to leave, the golem called her name and said, "Welcome home." Luff thanked it for guarding the place for the past 200 years and told it to rest. And the golem powered down for good. After that, she started heading up the stairs to confront Libra. But before she could go too far, the adventurers stopped her, insisting it was too risky to face Libra alone. They wanted to go with her, but Luff was done babysitting. She told them bluntly that they'd die almost instantly if Libra chose to attack, and none of them could argue with that. Before leaving, they asked who she really was. Luff paused for a moment, but decided not to answer, and continued up the stairs. Dina and Ares said they'd wait below since neither of them could handle Libra's brachium, meaning she'd be on her own. As she climbed, Luff wondered why she felt real sadness after taking down that golem. She couldn't shake the feeling. Maybe something was wrong with her mind, but there was no time to think about it now. Reaching the top floor, Luff found Libra waiting to intercept her. Libra ordered her to leave within 10 seconds or face elimination. Instead, Luff took off her glasses and spread her wings, revealing her true form. Seeing this, Libra stopped the countdown, struggling to process what she was seeing. She confirmed that the person in front of her looked exactly like Lufus, and was a 99% genetic match, but it didn't make sense. Lufas shouldn't have survived the battle against the heroes. The contradiction caused Libra to short-circuit, and Luff tried to calm her down, telling her not to think too hard for her own sake. But Libra's system was already unstable, and when Luff stepped forward to help repair her, Libra's defense protocols activated. She activated her brachium and created a vast airspace battlefield. Luff was caught off guard at first, but quickly adjusted as Libra opened fire. Dodging bullets and missiles, Luff weaved through the air, looking for an opening. Eventually, she found one and struck, interrupting Libra's attack sequence before closing in. Libra retaliated with more gunfire, but Luff used her wings to blow the bullets back. Libra switched tactics, launching a series of complex attacks, but none of them came close to breaking through. Frustrated, she shifted to her ultimate domain, a sure-hit attack that ignored all defenses and dealt 99,000 damage. Caught in the range, Luff didn't back off. Instead, she smiled, excited to finally feel some real damage. When the violent energy hit, the pain was immense, but she had more than enough HP to tank it. Pushing through the blast, she closed the distance and dodged Libra's last-ditch laser strike. Before Libra could swing her blade, Luff grabbed her arm, pinning her in place while casting all repair. The spell restored all of Libra's damaged parts, fixing centuries of wear. Luff apologized for taking so long to return. With her logic units fully restored, Libra finally recognized her master. Her mission complete, she powered down for a long rest. Luff sighed in relief, glad things hadn't gotten out of hand. But now she had a new problem: how to explain all this to the adventurers without exposing herself. She walked back down and peeked around the corner, only to find Dina and Ares waiting. Confused, she asked where the adventurers went. Dina casually explained that she implanted false memories in their heads, making them believe they were the ones who defeated Libra. Luff had forgotten about Dina's mind manipulation ability. Dina explained that she made them think Libra was already badly injured, allowing them to claim victory. Luff asked if Dina planned it from the start, and Dina smiled, admitting that was the only reason she tolerated them in the first place. Dina suggested heading up to the treasure vault. When they entered, they were stunned by the mountains of gold and glittering artifacts. Luff couldn't sit still. Something about all that treasure made her restless. Dina pointed out that Luff always loved shiny things and used to hoard gold obsessively, which explained her behavior. She told Ares to help her pick out useful items while Luff was busy getting distracted. Luff tried to argue that she could control herself, but with both hands full of gold already, her words didn't exactly convince anyone. Eventually, Dina and Ares finished gathering what they needed, leaving behind the useless weapons and spare coins. Before they left, Dina asked Luff to gather all the golems in the area for teleportation. Luff agreed, but when she realized Dina meant all of them, she groaned and spent the next few hours roaming the grave to collect every last one. Dina teleported the golems away and suggested they move out. Luff asked if it was all right to leave the adventurers as they were, but Dina assured her everything was fine. Sure enough, a few minutes after they left, the adventurers woke up, fully convinced they were the ones who cleared the dungeon. Meanwhile, out in the forest, Luff and the others made it back to their RV. Before setting off again, Dina repaired Libra's clothes and placed her on a tree stump. Luff approached, giving the command to power on, and Libra slowly opened her eyes, greeting Ares and the unfamiliar woman beside him. She apologized to Lufas for all the trouble she caused. Before Luff could respond, Dina scoffed that she couldn't believe Libra didn't recognize her. Luff chuckled and introduced Dina as her advisor. Libra was shocked, saying her memory contained no record of such a person. Dina got up close to her face, trying to jog her memory, but Libra insisted they'd never met. After scanning her data, she found some damaged files that might explain it, but couldn't access them yet. So, for now, she decided to take Luff's word for it and temporarily accepted Dina's authority. Luff couldn't read Libra's expressionless face, but she trusted her loyalty. She told her they were on a journey to reclaim all 12 heavenly stars and asked if she'd like to serve her again. Libra replied that nothing would make her happier and vowed to dedicate her life to Luff's cause. With Libra back in the team, Luff asked if she knew where the other stars were. Libra apologized, saying she'd been stationed in the grave for centuries and knew nothing of the outside world. So Luff turned to Dina, who happily explained that around 2,000 kilometers away, there was a small village at the base of a mountain where Parthnos now lived. Luff was surprised that Parthnos chose a village life, but Dina clarified that Parthnos had actually created the village herself, protecting it with a powerful barrier to shelter monsters and plants from humans. Luff was relieved to hear she wasn't causing trouble, until Dina added that the mountain used to be Luff's homeland. and driven out all the heaven wing who lived there, turning it into an uninhabitable zone. Luff could only sigh in disappointment. Luff wakes from a strange dream, a fleeting vision from her past as Sappho, yet the details slip away like mist. Dina's hand on her shoulder brings her back to reality, and Luff decides to focus on their mission instead. When she asks how much longer until they reach their destination, Dina says they're close. Along the road, Ares brings up a concern. If Parthenos expelled the Heaven Winged from Vanaheim, where did they all go? Dina explains they've settled in Galahorn, a sky city founded by one of the 7 heroes, Mara the Sky King. The mention stirs unease in Luff. Given her history, she doubts she'll get along with the Heaven Winged, but if Mara still lives, she needs to see whether he remembers their days together. By nightfall, they arrive before the cliffside capital of Galahorn. The place looks magnificent yet chaotic, its structures stacked along the steep rock walls. Ares immediately notices how sharply divided the city is, one half pure white, the other drenched in black. Dina explains that Galahorn has been torn apart by civil strife. The White-Winged believe themselves superior, while the Dark-Winged demand equality. Luff asks why Mara hasn't intervened, and Dina reveals that he's been trying to stay neutral, keeping both sides from tearing each other apart. But it hasn't worked. Ares recalls that centuries ago, discrimination among the Heaven Winged was banned under Luff's own reign, a rule she doesn't even remember issuing. Dina adds that after Luff disappeared, the White-Winged seized power and began oppressing the Dark-Winged again. The war has raged for 200 years since. Hearing this, Luff feels responsible and decides to set things right. However, with Heaven Winged lifespans stretching over a millennium, many would still remember her face. To avoid being recognized, she cloaks herself before entering the city. Climbing the stairways proves brutal. Galahorn was clearly designed for those who can fly. Ares grumbles about all the walking until Libra switches to jet mode, grabs everyone without warning, and rockets them upward. The roar of her engines wakes the entire Darkwing district, and within moments, the streets fill with confused residents. Luff scolds Libra for the noise, but the automaton barely cares. Dina steps forward to calm the crowd, introducing herself as a free trader, while Luff apologizes for the disturbance. Fortunately, one of the locals offers them lodging for the night, which Luff accepts since Ares looks ready to collapse. Later that night, Luff lies in bed, but sleep turns cruel. She dreams of her childhood, a memory buried deep. She sees herself as a little girl, beaten and locked away by her father for being born with dark wings. While he boasts to his white-winged peers, she sits hungry and cold in a shed. Only her frail mother dares to visit, sneaking her food under cover of night. Luff hugs her tightly, promising she'll be fine, but when they try to return to the house, her father catches them. Furious, he drags her mother away while Luff lies helpless in the mud. In that moment, she vows to grow strong enough to break free of such cruelty, even if the gods abandon her. Luff jolts awake, her heart pounding. Libra checks on her, but Luff insists she's fine. When Libra returns to sleep mode, Luff stares into the darkness, shaken. The memories felt too real, too vivid. And the strangest part, she doesn't remember ever writing that backstory when she created Lufa's character in the game. If these emotions are real, then this world isn't just fiction. It means the true Lufa once lived, and he's now occupying her body. That leaves one terrifying question: what happened to her soul? Meanwhile, in the Demon Lord's castle, the 7 demon luminaries gather for a meeting. One seat is empty. Mars hasn't shown up. They quickly assume he's dead, probably taken out by an enemy. Some speculate that Ares might have done it, which would be humiliating. Then Venus, another luminary, enters the room. Calm and cryptic, she tells them she knows who killed Mars. The others question her, wondering where she's been. Venus admits she's been tracking the killer, but couldn't get close without risking her life. Though she didn't see the face, she recalls one chilling detail: the person had black wings. The room falls silent. Everyone knows what that means. It can't be possible, but the implication is clear: Lufa might still be alive. 2 centuries ago, the human heroes supposedly killed her. If she's returned, even the demon lord himself should be afraid. Venus then reports that she saw Lufa heading toward Galahorn. The leader of the luminaries wastes no time, ordering Venus and Jupiter to go there and observe her movements closely. Morning breaks over Galahorn. Luff and her companions regroup to discuss their next step. Meeting Mara, the Sky King, won't be easy amid the chaos, so Luff decides they should first gather information. She'll investigate the Darkwing district. Dina will head to the White Wing side. Libra will conduct her own aerial surveillance, and Ares will handle his own inquiries. Before leaving, Ares warns her about one of the 12 heavenly stars, Igakuros, the goat, who once invited him to join the demon army. Luff thanks him for the warning and plans to deal with Igakuros once she's done here. As she wanders through the Darkwing side of town, Luff notices that despite the gloomy atmosphere, the people seem kind. Her attention drifts to a massive black temple dedicated to the goddess of creation. Curious, she steps inside and freezes. At the center stands a colossal statue of herself. The caretaker approaches, seeing her confusion, and assumes she's new to the city. Luff remarks that she's surprised anyone would worship such a tyrant. The man seems offended but explains that while the world may remember Lufa as a conqueror, the Darkwinged remember her as their savior. Before she came, they lived in poverty, hated for their black wings. She changed everything, conquering the heaven-winged and forbidding discrimination, granting the oppressed their first taste of dignity. Even after her fall, they never forgot her. Luff listens in silence, conflicted. When she brings up how Parthnos later expelled them, the caretaker nods solemnly, saying it was punishment they deserved for betraying her. He even calls it mercy that Parthnos spared their lives. When she asks what they think of their current king, Mara, the caretaker's face hardens. To him, Mara is a fool, a false hero who destroyed everything Lufa built. Elsewhere, Dina waits impatiently in the White Wing sector for a contact who never shows. High above, Libra scans the streets, checking expressions and crowds for anyone who might recognize Luff. Nothing seems unusual until she spots Dina below, waiting for someone suspiciously late. That's when Libra notices a cloaked figure approaching, a demon in disguise. She dives down and confronts him, warning him to back off. The demon drops his act and attacks, forcing Libra to activate her defense systems. At the edge of the city, Ares sits alone, watching the horizon. Knowing that Galahorn was founded by one of the heroes who betrayed Lufa fills him with disgust. He gets up to take a walk, but after a few quiet minutes, the air changes. A barrier shimmers to life around him. He's trapped. As the light fades, a shadowy figure steps forward. It's Igakuros, waiting for him, back at Marek's castle, where he's sitting in a cramped council chamber looking absolutely drained. The Lightwing nobles have been yelling at him nonstop, insisting he should use his power to get rid of the Darkwinged once and for all. And even though Marek originally founded Galahorn to give the Darkwinged a place where they wouldn't be looked down upon, Parthnos kicked the Light-Winged out of Vanaheim, leaving them homeless. So he reluctantly allowed them into this nation. But even though this wasn't their land, they kept demanding special treatment and persecuting the Darkwinged. Marek has been trying every diplomatic approach he can think of, but no matter what he says, the Light-Winged refuse to coexist. And the more they pressure him, the more Marek doubts whether he deserves to be king at all. He compares himself to Lufus, who struggled through everything to become extraordinary, while he feels like someone who had success handed to him and still can't manage the country right. Meanwhile, Lufus stands outside the Lightwing district, knowing the fastest way to resolve this crisis is to convince Marek himself. But getting in contact with him is another problem entirely. Elsewhere in the nation, Libra is engaged in a fierce battle against Jupiter. She morphs her arm into a cannon and fires a blast straight at him. Jupiter leaps aside at the last second, dodging effortlessly. Libra switches to rapid-fire shots, but he shields himself with compressed wind and dives in for a clean slice that cuts straight through her gun. After examining his movements, Libra concludes he must be an element user who manipulates wind freely. Jupiter confirms it proudly, but says knowing his power won't help her at the same time. Engokuro is still trying to persuade Ares to join the demon army alongside him so they can wipe out the heroes. Ares refuses. He knows Ego is doing this for revenge because of what happened to Lufus, but he tells him there's no need, because Lufus has returned. The second Engokuro hears that, he freezes. It sounds impossible, but it would explain how Mars was defeated, so he believes it. Ares urges him to go back to Lufus's side and serve her again. But Ego insists he can't return yet. If he doesn't eliminate her enemies first, they'll turn on her again eventually. His plan now is to destroy Marek's nation, wipe out the heroes, and then annihilate the demons themselves as an offering to Lufus. Ares tries talking him down, but Engokuro's too far gone and teleports away to begin his mission. Left alone, Ares ponders. He hates the heroes as much as Engokuro does. And honestly, letting the Light-Winged perish wouldn't bother him, especially since they persecuted Lufus over the color of her wings. But Lufus herself would never approve of genocide. So he decides to wait and see how the Light-Winged behave before choosing a side. Meanwhile, in the Lightwing district streets, Diana grows tired of waiting for her contact and she spots a suspicious man heading into a dark alley and follows him. There, She overhears a group of light-winged plotting to take matters into their own hands and get rid of the dark-winged, even if they need to shed blood. They claim the dark-winged are preparing for war, information supposedly given to them by Jupiter. When asked where Jupiter is, the man admits he doesn't know. Jupiter was supposed to meet him today, but never showed up, likely because of the wingless strangers who arrived recently. After listening in, Diana realizes this nation is on the brink of civil war, probably fueled intentionally by Jupiter. She doesn't know why he skipped his meeting today, but at least she has intel to take back to Lufus. Back with Libra, she continues clashing with Jupiter. No matter how much wind pressure he summons, Libra's solid frame refuses to budge. The only reason he's lasted this long is his speed, dodging every shot. But Libra's been analyzing him the whole time. Once she completes her analysis, dodging won't save him. Jupiter realizes he can't win, so he kicks up a massive dust cloud and escapes while she clears the air. Too late to catch him. Later, everyone reunites to exchange intel. Diana reveals that the light-winged are preparing for war against the dark-winged and have likely been provoked by someone named Jupiter. Libra adds that she fought Jupiter herself, one of the 7 demon luminaries, but he managed to escape. Lufus is shocked that a demon is trying to destroy the city when it's already collapsing under its own political tension. Since Jupiter will definitely return, Libra asks for more ammunition, saying she's running low. Lufus agrees to synthesize more later. Next, she asks Ares if anything noteworthy happened on his end. Ares lies, saying nothing happened, still unsure whether to intervene or let the light-winged face destruction. Lufus accepts the answer and tells them what she saw in the Dark District. They harbor deep hatred toward the light-winged, and the chance of civil war is extremely high. On the other hand, the Dark-winged have erected a statue of Lufus in their temple and worship her. Everyone approves of them immediately, and Libra even suggests joining the Dark-winged in the coming conflict. But Lufus refuses. Choosing a side would doom the nation and invite demon invasion. Instead, she instructs Libra to capture Jupiter alive next time, so he can be forced to testify before all the heaven-winged. Libra agrees, but asks whether killing him is forbidden. Lufus tells her keeping him alive is necessary, but her safety comes first. That night, Lufus finishes crafting Libra's ammunition. Libra walks in and casually lifts her skirt to store the ammo, and somehow, it all fits. Lufus has no idea how. Libra promises she'll capture Jupiter next time. Then she asks if Lufus knows where Diana went because her sensors don't detect her within 100 kilometers. Lufus tells her not to worry. Diana just uses teleportation magic to move wherever she wants. But that statement confuses Libra. In this world, the only teleportation spell is X-Gate. Lufus tries to think deeply about it, and suddenly gets a headache. 200 years ago, teleportation magic didn't exist. Even in Zeta Online, X-Gate wasn't meant to be a learnable spell. So how is Diana using it? And why hasn't Lufus questioned this earlier? Something doesn't add up. When Diana finally returns to the inn, she walks straight into an interrogation. Pitch black room, single spotlight, chair in the center. Lufus demands answers. Diana has both memory manipulation and teleportation magic, plus suspicious levels of talent for someone supposedly just an NPC. Lufus asks if her teleportation is the escape spell, and Diana doesn't deny it. Lufus is stunned. Escape was the spell that summoned her into this world, yet Diana uses it freely? Diana suddenly gets defensive, yelling that she trained for 200 years to stand out more. Seeing her reaction, Lufus decides to drop the interrogation. For now, relieved, Diana casually mentions she should be able to teleport Libra anywhere because Libra, being a golem, counts as an object, meaning X-Gate restrictions don't apply. She suggests testing it. Libra doesn't mind. Jupiter hasn't moved, so it's unlikely he'll attack while she's gone for only 10 minutes. The two teleport away. But not even 10 seconds pass before Jupiter launches a massive attack and blows up a section of the Lightwing District. The entire city is swallowed by a cloud of frenzy, amplifying every feeling of hate between the light and dark sides until it looks like an all-out war could break loose any second. Lufus instantly realizes it's moon magic, not a skill, meaning Jupiter couldn't be responsible since he only uses wind magic. She rushes over to Ares, telling him that there's clearly someone else who wants the city destroyed besides the demons. When she asks if he has any idea what's going on, Ares poses a hypothetical. What if one of the 12 heavenly stars did all this out of loyalty to her? He worries she'll be furious once she learns Agakaros is behind everything. But Lufus says that while she'll smack some sense into them, she'd also be pleased that they were acting out of devotion, misguided or not. That alone makes Ares realize what he must do to make up for hiding this from her. He decides to handle the situation himself. But Luff knows that if Icarus really is the one behind everything, Ares stands no chance and is basically throwing himself into danger. Meanwhile, at the center of the city, Agakuro is hard at work spreading negative energy, waiting for the Heaven-Winged to destroy each other. Buildings are already going up in flames. Jupiter watches from a rooftop. He decides to leave before Venus's 10-minute distraction runs out. But to his dismay, Libra appears right behind him. Jupiter can't understand how she returned so early when Venus promised she'd stall her for at least 10 minutes. But now his chances of escaping are almost zero. Libra has fully analyzed his attack patterns, so she tells him his odds of winning are under 1%. Jupiter refuses and bolts past her. But she's seen that trick before, shoots him in the back, and drops his reaction speed by 20%. Worse, Libra has several homing missiles ready thanks to Luff, so he can't dodge any of them. As they approach, Jupiter forms a wind barrier, but Libra predicted that, too. She punches through the barrier and sends him crashing into the ground. Even though her attack barely grazes him, the damage is massive. Knowing she can predict all his moves, he hides his presence with wind magic to silence the area around him. But Libra grabs him by the neck anyway, telling him it's pointless because she can track him no matter what. Panicking, he blasts her palms with wind magic just enough to loosen her grip and immediately runs for his life. Meanwhile, Ares finally reaches the city center and confronts Agakuro. Agakuro refuses to undo his berserk spell until the entire city crumbles, and he doubts Ares can stop him anyway. But Ares stands firm. They clash. Agakuro fires a laser, and Ares counters with a flame fist before throwing up a wall of fire to block the rest of the barrage. He knows he's at a disadvantage, but refuses to give up. When he spots an opening, he blasts straight through Agakuro's chest, only to realize it was just a clone. The real Agakuro has been above him charging a massive spirit bomb, which he hurls directly at Ares. But at the last second, Luffus steps in and blocks the blast. She yells at Agakuro for nearly killing Ares, but he barely hears her because the moment he recognizes her, his eyes fill with tears. He's unbelievably happy to see her again. Luff had planned on punching him for the mess he caused, but seeing how worried he was changes her mind. She understands why he wanted revenge on the Heaven-Winged, but she tells him she has no intention of harming Mirak or the others. When she asks him to undo his berserk spell, Agakuro agrees instantly. She decides to overlook the trouble he caused and orders him to assist her instead of the demons. He shifts back into his human form, swears loyalty to her again, undoes the spell, and slips into her shadow. But when Luff assumes this will stop the civil war, Agakuro corrects her. His spell only amplified emotions. The hatred was already there. Even without the spell, both sides still want each other dead. Luff realizes the situation is worse than she thought. Suddenly, Dina appears, saying she has a way to prevent the war. Luff is relieved to see her, but Agakuro is confused. He doesn't recall knowing Dina, yet he vaguely remembers her being in the background 200 years ago. Meanwhile, Jupiter continues running for his life, not wanting to be caught by Dina. No matter where he hides, she keeps finding him, and he's convinced she's doing it on purpose just to terrify him. She tells him that since there are no civilians nearby, she can activate Braxium freely, so surrendering is his only real option. She gives him 10 seconds to decide. Jupiter breaks completely and surrenders. Back in the town square, the light and dark factions gather and are seconds from starting a war. Merrick arrives just in time, urging everyone to drop their weapons because fighting like this is exactly what the demons want. Luff is relieved to finally see him, until she notices one of his wings is gone. She asks Dina what happened, and Dina explains that this is part of the Demon King's curse. It sealed away half the hero's power and removed one body part, just like how Amigra lost the ability to walk. Luff feels terrible for Merrick since Heaven-Winged build their identities around flight, and he'll never fly again. Dina doubts Merrick's speech will calm anyone down, but Luff says that without him, the war would have already started. Still, he can't handle both sides alone. Libra arrives with Jupiter in tow, telling the Heaven-Winged they can punish him however they like. But that doesn't explain everything, so Dina goes down to address the crowd herself. She explains that the man before them is Jupiter, one of the Demon King's 7 luminaries. And while she knows they're all furious, she urges them to think about who benefits most from this nation's destruction. The realization sinks in. The demons orchestrated all of this. Their anger shifts toward Jupiter. Jupiter lies there. He looks up at Dina and notices her smile. She looks exactly like Venus. Betrayed by someone he thought was a comrade, Jupiter breaks free and charges at her. But before he reaches her, Dina impales him through the chest. He tries to warn Libra that Dina is one of the luminaries, but she refuses to listen and decapitates him in one clean strike. Dina then tells the crowd the problem has been resolved. The people stand stunned. They were angry at Jupiter, but they weren't expecting such a brutal execution. Luff understands why they're speechless, but she wonders what Jupiter was trying to say about Dina before he died. Later, after the crowd disperses, Merrick meets Libra to thank her for capturing Jupiter. He invites her back to the castle. Merrick then notices Luff standing behind him. He invites her as well, and Luff accepts. They head to a private room, and once alone, Luff removes her disguise. Merrick is happy yet conflicted to see her. He regrets everything that happened in the past. His reaction tells Luff that he isn't a player like she'd hoped. Merrick believes he isn't fit to be king and that Luff should have stayed ruler. But his words trigger a sudden wave of emotion in Luff. Even though Soffel has no personal stake in this world, the narrative he created means Luff had no regrets about losing. Hearing Merrick call it a mistake feels like an insult. She tells him to have some pride because for better or worse, he was one of the heroes who defeated her. This nation is his now, and she won't offer any more help or advice after this. She's confident he'll manage on his own. Embarrassed by her earlier outburst, since she rarely gets that emotional, she asks Libra to delete any photos she might have taken. But Libra pauses, confused. She doesn't even know what a photo is. Neither do Agakuro or Ares. Luff assumes photography doesn't exist in this world, but then she remembers that when she first arrived, she mentioned photos, and Dina responded normally, meaning Dina knew exactly what she meant. That implies Dina has been hiding something all along. So Luff asks Dina for a private conversation, and Dina smiles, a slow, unsettling, creepy smile. Luff gets right to the point, asking Dina who she really is, because there's no way she's the advisor she claims to be. Dina admits she lied about her identity, pointing out that it should have been obvious from the start. When Loftus first returned to the tower and met her, the place hadn't been cleaned in over 200 years. If Dina had truly been a loyal advisor waiting for her master's return, she would have kept the tower in better shape. Luff also knows Dina can't be one of her former subjects, because Libra would have recognized her immediately. Dina confirms she's neither Luff's advisor nor her subordinate. She simply knew Lufas had an NPC with that design in her tower and used that identity to get close to her. The term NPC catches Luff off guard, making her suspect that Dina must be a player just like her. But if that's true, then why did everyone claim they recognized her? Luff suddenly recalls Dina mentioning her ability to implant or alter memories. That would explain everything, and Dina confirms it. She implanted memories in Ares when she first met him, and Ego had been working with demons long enough for her to alter his memory at the demon castle. But Libra was different. Memory manipulation doesn't work on golems since they don't have memories to rewrite, only records. So Dina got lucky that some of those records were damaged, allowing her to slip through. Given all this, Luff worries that Dina might have tampered with her memories as well. But Dina calmly says she couldn't. Luff's will was too strong, and implanting false memories would have required a full year of non-stop concentration, something impossible under their circumstances. So the best she could manage was to take up the advisor role and subtly nudge Luff's thoughts enough to keep her from questioning things too much. But she never expected that Lufas would be a player, which threw her whole strategy off. Dina then clarifies something else. She isn't a normal player. She was a beta tester. The developers hired her to test the new half-elf race introduced in an update, and as part of her permissions, she was allowed to view all character data, which is how she knew Luff placed an NPC in her tower. Luff calls it a complete breach of privacy, but sets that aside when she remembers something else. Dina manipulated Agakaro's memory while he was in the demon castle, meaning she could freely come and go from there. Dina confirms it and finally drops her facade. Her real identity is Venus of the Seven Luminaries. She had planned to keep playing the advisor until Lufas and the demons destroyed one another, but now that she's been exposed, she intends to crush Lufas and turn her into a pawn. Luff challenges her, pointing out her weak-looking level of 300, but Venus laughs and reveals that her status screen is fake. In reality, she is level 1000, equal to Luff in strength. She rises into the air, erects a barrier to block outside interference, and launches the first attack with a massive laser aimed straight at Luff. Luff blocks the blast without a scratch. So Venus escalates and rips off Gilgamesh's noble phantasm, firing hundreds of blades at her. At first, Luff looks worried, but the DPS turns out to be low, letting her blow the blades away before creating her own to counter. Venus opens a portal and reflects the blades right back at her, forcing Luff to fly upward to avoid them. Luff then tries to rush Venus midair, but Venus teleports away again. She casts a water spell that summons vines from the ground to ensnare Luff. But Luff wipes them out with a thunderous axe kick before flying toward Venus again. Venus claims it's pointless since she can teleport endlessly, but Luff has already read her patterns. When Venus emerges from her next portal, Luff is there waiting. Venus dodges the punch and immediately retaliates, landing a direct hit, but Luff doesn't budge. As she explains, a backline mage's melee stats can't break her defenses. Luff excels at physical combat, and she proves it by open palm striking Venus and sending her crashing into the ground. She urges Dina to give up because she doesn't stand a chance. While it's technically possible for a backline mage to fight on the front lines, it requires special preparations. Dina never made any, which tells Luff everything she needs to know. Yes, Dina was a beta tester, but she only ever tested balance and never played deeply. She could reach max level for testing purposes, but she never became a hardcore player. In other words, Dina lacks real combat experience, while Luff is a sweatlord of the highest order. Even so, Luff asks her to stop because there's no point in continuing. Dina asks if Luff really intends to forgive her despite all the deception. And while Luff acknowledges the lies, she also recognizes that Dina's been genuinely helpful during their journey. Still, she wants to know why Dina chose such a roundabout method in the first place if her goal was to destroy the demons. Dina stays quiet for a moment. When she finally speaks, she insists she hasn't lost yet. She still has one final technique. She will only admit defeat if Luff survives this next attack. Dina then rips off Pain's signature move and summons a colossal meteor aimed straight at Luff. She teleports outside the impact zone, leaving Luff to face it alone. Luff could easily fly away, but doing so would let the meteor obliterate Galahorn. So she has no choice but to meet it head-on. She flies upward without fear, activates Iron Kick, and reinforces it with Weak Point Strike before unleashing everything she has. The meteor disintegrates instantly, appearing from below like a brilliant firework display. With the danger gone, Luff approaches Dina again and asks if she wants to continue. Dina finally admits defeat. If her strongest spell can't harm Luff, then she truly can't win. Luff asks if she's ready to explain everything, and Dina agrees. She begins by recounting her past. She was a beta tester who arrived in this world shortly after Luphas was sealed. She found herself placed into the character she used to play, and back then, many strong individuals still existed. Plenty were over level 500, though level 1000 players were rare. But as she explored, she realized something unsettling. All data about players who hadn't appeared in the official novels was gone. That's when she realized this world wasn't the game itself, but the world of the novels based on the game. Luff is shocked because she never considered that possibility. The game had a system where players' actions were written into canonical stories, but only a small fraction of players ever appeared in them. Most players didn't want to be included, and the number of authors was limited. If this world truly follows the novels, then Luff wonders why a beta tester like Dina exists here at all. Dina explains she investigated thoroughly, but found no one else like her. All her friends' characters had always been part of this world, so she assumed she was the only player brought here. Luff suggests others might have been around without her noticing, but Dina says it's likely too late. Most of the players from that era are long dead. And besides, if all high-level game players had appeared in this world, the demons wouldn't have driven humanity so far back, feeling utterly isolated and in a world on the brink of ruin. Dina wasn't strong enough to defeat the Demon King alone, so she infiltrated the demon upper ranks to slow their advance from within. When Luff returned, she intended to manipulate her into confronting the Demon King directly so the threat could be eliminated once and for all. It all sounds reasonable, yet something about her story feels off to Luff, though she can't pinpoint exactly what. Dina asks if Luff has any more questions, but Luff only wants to know whether Dina is her enemy. Dina assures her she isn't, though she won't blame Luff for interpreting the deception as hostility. To her surprise, Luff actually asks her to return as her advisor. Dina can't believe it after everything she's done, but Luff doesn't mind. Dina helped her tremendously, and having a subordinate with secret schemes sounds like fun, so she's welcome to come back. Overwhelmed, Dina asks if Luff is really a player, because her response sounds too in character. Luff laughs, admitting her player memories and character memories have blended to the point where she acts in character naturally. But the real reason she wants Dina by her side is simple. She's relieved to have found someone in the same situation. Yes, Dina tried to manipulate her, but Luff was going to confront the Demon King anyway. Nothing really changes. Moved by Luff's acceptance, Dina agrees to serve faithfully until the Demon King falls. Just then, Luff's subordinates arrive, alarmed by the meteor they witnessed. They ask what happened, and Luff simply says she was attacked by a mysterious force. They don't question it, so she changes the topic and tells them to prepare to leave for Parthnos. She then asks Agakaros for updates on the other heavenly stars. He reports that Scorpius is also working with the demons, and Lion is currently waging war with the vampire princess Bennett Nash. Before they move on, she mentions one last rumor. The kingdom has successfully summoned a hero. In the castle of Levitine, the royal magicians complete their ritual, and in the center of the circle, a normal-looking high school boy appears. Manami had been an ordinary high schooler on his way to class just minutes earlier, until strange voices suddenly called out to him, begging for help. Before he could make sense of it, he was pulled into a mysterious chamber, surrounded by dozens of people staring straight at him. They explained that they were the ones who summoned him and plead for him to defeat both the demons and the conqueror Luff. Manami has no clue what's happening, nor does he know who Luff is supposed to be. Any normal kid would refuse to be dragged into a war by people who literally kidnapped him. But Manami has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. He can't bring himself to turn away from people asking for help, so he agrees to become their hero. Weeks pass, and reality hits hard. Training under Frederick, one of the world's strongest swordsmen, turns out to be brutal. It's not that Manami lacks effort. Frederick just refuses to speak English. Because of that, Manami can't understand a single instruction. When he tries to explain that he's struggling with sword technique and wonders if there's another method he can try, Frederick suddenly growls at him, forcing Manami to shut his mouth instantly. Just then, the vice captain walks in and translates Frederick's growls, revealing that Frederick is furious because Manami keeps getting distracted. And right as he says that, Frederick lunges into a haystack to kill a mouse. Cross comes running and announces that the hero's party has finally been assembled. Though Manami finds it strange that everything's happening so quickly, he follows Cross to meet the king. There, he's introduced to his new team: Frederick, the vice captain, Cross himself, and Alfie, daughter of Gantz. They're the nation's strongest elites, and also the king's personal covert operatives. Manami is honored, but when the king says it's time to depart, Manami freezes. He's only been here 3 weeks. Isn't it too early to take down the Demon King? He doubts his own capability, and he still has no idea how strong the Demon Lord or Luffus actually are. But if the king claims he's ready, Manami forces himself to believe it. Just as the journey is about to begin, a dark feather drifts down from the sky. Then several more. Everyone looks up in terror, except Manami, who has no idea what any of this means. When he finally looks up, he sees Luffus and the Demon King ORM standing face to face. Cross immediately breaks down, convinced they've come to destroy the kingdom. But the two figures seem far more focused on each other. Earlier, Agakuro had informed Luffus that a new hero was summoned in the kingdom. She explained that the hero class is an extremely rare one, so rare that most players in the old game didn't even know it existed until Ollie discovered it. Because of its insane growth rate, Ollie skyrocketed to the top of the leaderboards in no time. If the kingdom really summoned a new hero, then he likely has enormous potential, but he's also vulnerable right now. If Agakuro knows about the summoning, the demons must know as well. They would definitely try to kill the hero while he's still weak. The others agree, but Dina points out that Ollie already created a powerful protective barrier around the kingdom. When Luff asks what barrier she's talking about, Dina reminds her of the hero's skill soul succession, an area effect barrier that massively buffs allies, weakens enemies, and keeps its effects active until combat ends. The price? The user dies instantly after activating it.in this world. Death is permanent, so Ollie sacrificed his life to protect the kingdom. Luff respects him for that, since even Ares and Agakuro would struggle to fight inside the barrier. The kingdom should be the safest place for the hero, as long as the Demon King himself doesn't appear. Even so, Luff remains uneasy and decides to check on Laviton before returning the next day. Later, she arrives at the kingdom and stops outside the barrier, impressed by its strength. No ordinary luminary could step inside, but there is one exception: Demon Lord ORM. Back to the present, Luffus and ORM stare each other down. ORM greets her, addressing her as Allor, and releases an overwhelming pressure that sends the hero's party collapsing to their knees. Luff has no idea what that name means. ORM explains. It's the name demons gave her out of fear and respect, meaning the harbinger of death. Luff laughs and asks if he's here to kill the hero because he's afraid of him. But ORM replies that he fears only two beings: the omnipotent goddess and Luff herself. He isn't here to kill the hero. He came because he knew Luff would show up. He then confesses that, in the past, he always avoided confronting her because she was the strongest existence he had ever seen. Only after her defeat did he realize she was the only one acting outside the goddess's scenario. He never should have allowed her to fall. Luff demands an explanation, but ORM tells her she'll have to prove her worth first. They soar into the air and clash. Their blows crack the land like natural disasters. The hero's party trembles, and poor Alfie nearly faints from panic. Manami is stunned, but strangely calm compared to the others. Luff and ORM exchange attacks until ORM catches her leg, swings her, and lands a punch directly to her chest. She counters with a knee to his chin, launching him upward. She shoots past the clouds and punches him so hard that the clouds split, only for ORM to stop the attack with one hand. He praises her strength, saying he hasn't felt anything like it since fighting the 7 heroes 200 years ago. Luff tries to act confident, but inwardly she panics. ORM blocked her full power blow like it was nothing. Her HP has already dropped by 50,000, and she's sure ORM has far more than she does. Continuing would be suicidal. She retreats to the ground, and ORM calmly follows on the ground. The hero team is still shattered after witnessing the battle. Alfie looks like she'll need lifelong therapy. Manami, however, manages to stay standing. The Demon King praises Luff for her efforts, but asks why she isn't using her full strength. Luff is stunned. She thought she had been going all out. ORM then reveals that 200 years ago, before her defeat, Luff wielded power far beyond what she displayed today. Sappho is shocked to learn she used to be even more terrifying. Seeing Luff's confusion, ORM curses the goddess, realizing she must have placed restrictions on Luff to prevent her from breaking free of the goddess's scenario. Luff demands to know what he's talking about. ORM explains that everything in this world follows the goddess's scenario, even the devil folk. They're nothing but pawns created for her amusement. Demons kill because they were programmed to do so. If they don't, they vanish, and their essence becomes mana. Without demons, magic wouldn't exist. The goddess designed this endless cycle of slaughter. Cross breaks down, unable to accept that the goddess of mercy, Alvness, has been manipulating them. ORM confirms it without sympathy that he points out that the hero's betrayal of Luff was an unnatural act, clearly influenced by the goddess. They could have waited until she defeated the demons, but instead they killed her first, proving the goddess feared Luff discovering the truth. Before ORM can say more, Dina opens a portal and attacks him, while Libra swoops in to pull Luff away, urging her to retreat. Back on the cliff, ORM confronts Dina, having erected a sound barrier so she can speak freely. He asks if she knew Lufas had been weakened. Dina smiles and admits she did. When he asks whether she was responsible, she replies that only the omnipotent goddess could do something like that, and it certainly wasn't her. Peers. The perfect image of a typical summoned anime protagonist. That wraps up today's recap. What do you think about this episode? Drop your thought in the comment. And if you liked this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you never miss the next one.